Welcome everybody to Bugbears and Brews. My name's Brian, and today I'm going to talk about getting kids into tabletop RPGs and DMing for that group of kids. I myself am pretty lucky. I have a group of niece or nephews and a niece that have played D&D a couple times, luckily through me. Um, and I've always had a really good experience doing so. And I know when I mentioned it to some friends, I was like, "Oh man, how did you get them into it? And what's it like dealing for children versus adults?" And so I figured I would share my tips that I have. Um, for my age range of kids, I started doing this for them about 2 years ago, and I do it about every 4 months or so. Not as often as I would like, but considering they live about an hour away from me, it's kind of hard to get time set aside with me and then them. And what am I going to do with the little one? Is she coming with me? And so on. So I was looking. The earliest, youngest I've DM'd for is probably 8, and right now the oldest is 12, I think. So quite an age range there. And so, starting out, it was like between 8 and 10, and now we're dealing with 12 to 10 or so, somewhere around that time, that age range. The first thing you have to do though is kind of probe the kids' interest. See if this is something that they're going to be interested in. One of the things you can always do is watch adventure movies. Doesn't have to be like fantasy style. Just the main thing is like a group of people going out on an adventure versus a solo adventure. So good examples, obviously Lord of the Rings movies, and the Hobbits, those kind of things. For me, I don't think I was too young to watch it, but Big Trouble in Little China was a great movie. I know some people right now might say that might be a little bit too mature for kids that age, but I know I was watching that movie when I was their age. But the main thing is you want a movie with a group of people, and the people fulfill different roles. So that way they kind of get the idea of working together as a team versus like your Lone Ranger type deal. The other thing is look at the book. If they're over or you go over to their house or something like that for a bit of a family gathering or something like that, bring your book with you and kind of thumb through the art or have them thumb through the art uh, and see do they like it. Not even looking at like the details of it, just or the details of the gameplay, but in any RPG book, the art is absolutely fantastic. I don't think I've seen an RPG book the art is sucking. I remember one of the first things that really got me interested in D&D was looking at a player's handbook for second edition and seeing all the great art. Another thing, really forward, but if you got a pretty good idea that that kid is going to be into some sort of tabletop gaming, is get him a beginner box, a starter set, whatever it is that that system has. Get them a lesser version of that. D&D has a starter set. Pathfinder has a beginner box. I'm not sure about the other ones because I'm sadly not too familiar with those, but I would imagine there's at least some form of entry level RPG set for that game there. So once a kid or kids clearly show that they're interested, you then have to kind of start thinking about the setup of the game. And the first thing that you got to do is talk to the kids. What do they want? Do they want like a free forming or kind of like random quest, like the day in the life of a novice adventurer? Do they want to do like a little story based campaign? Do they want to do like a little one shot? Leave that up to them. The next thing is, how do they want to handle characters? There's kind of a pro and con with this one here. Do they want you to go ahead and create the characters and bring them with you? Or are you guys going to all sit together and create the characters together? The nice thing with having the pre-made characters is kids, let's not lie, they have a limited attention span. So having those characters good to go, you can say, hey, here's your group of characters. Pick out which ones you like. I will say when I do this, we have a set group of characters that we use for like our more campaigny set. But yesterday when we did our goblins one shot, I came with 6 different goblins. I said, here, kids, here's a bunch of goblins. You guys pick which ones you want. I always have extras. That way nobody's like, oh, well, I really wanted that one, but now I don't have that one. Or, somebody else took that one. So this way there's a little bit of options that they can play with. And that way they're not expecting to everybody to fulfill a certain role. It gives the kids more options on what to do. Because I'm knocking over toys there. The thing that's nice about doing the character creation is just like with an adult, you learn the mechanics a bit more. You understand the aspects of what goes into that character. versus having to spend 10 minutes looking over the character sheet and like explain to the kids, here's your hit points and that kind of thing. But it's kind of it's a plus and minus either way. If you think they can handle the more strenuous hour long or so character development, because remember you're going to be doing this with a group of kids that are used to playing, so it's not going to be your quick 20-30 minute character slap together. It's going to be a little bit longer process. I would say first time, try to go with pre-made characters. If they really push for character generation, that's fine. I wouldn't try to get them one way or another, but personally, pre-made characters for me, at least the first time, worked out really well. The other thing that I found is having some sort of physical tracker for your class resources works well. We typically use Legos. So like red Legos represent something, green Legos represent another thing, yellow, and so on. So that way, when they use that resource, they hand me that Lego, and then I remember at the end of a rest to hand back the Legos. That way the kids can easily see there. You can always break out the glass beads and those kinds of things, but I figure what kid doesn't have Legos? So, using those Legos and having them around really works well for us. Also, miniatures, if you have them, they're great because kids are very visual. Even if you're not going to use like a battle map or something like that, just having some miniatures down to kind of like do these, kind of give a better visual to the kids. Like, here's you and your buddy, and here's all the bad guys over there. And then another thing that I found really helps them get into it is let them buy their own set of dice. Or in this case, I took my nieces or my nephews out. I haven't bought Izzy her dice yet. But I took them out to the dice or the comic book shop, and I let them pick out their own set of dice, and that was Uncle Brian's gift to them, was their first set of dice. I also have given them each. I have a couple of those pounds of dice from WizKids or whatever. Give them some dice. That way they have some hodgepodge dice. But once they kind of like their second or third time into it, it's like, hey, here's your dice. So these are your dice. You bring them to the table. It's that investment into the game that really hooks them in there. Now that you kind of have, the kids ready, they're mentally there. You did the little talk about how's the game's going to run. Looking at the aspects of running the game, there's not really a lot of difference from running a game for children as there is for adults. Some of the things I will say though is most of this information can actually be applicable to adults as well, the first-time players. But I'm kind of just doing it in mind of a child there. But first thing is try to set up scenarios to teach game mechanics. So make sure you have some checks in there and some saves. You don't want it to just be all combat. Having the different little aspects of gameplay really help there. So for me, I like to set up at least one role play scenario, one exploration scenario, and one combat. Normally it's more than that, but anytime I do a kids game, I try to make sure I at least have all three pillars. An adult game, we might have one day might be all role play, another game night might be mostly combat with a little bit of exploration. But for a kid game, I always try to have all three of the pillars there, no matter how long or short they are. But that way they kind of get the idea. So like an example would be day in the life of an adventurer. So first thing, they start off in town. They're going to start exploring, look for like a job board or look for what kind of quests they want. In this case, like in a freeform scenario, I'd see what the kids are asking. That's the one thing I will say is kids are a lot more open in saying, oh, well, I really want to do this. I found like, oh, is there anybody missing a dog? Okay, yeah, sure. It's not something I thought of off the top of my head, but the kids mentioned they want to go find a missing dog. Let's go ahead and try to track down that missing dog. So that kind of, I know I'm kind of rambling on here a little bit and kind of not doing a good consolidated start to finish type deal here, but in this case, just roll with me, right? So encourage their ideas. Like I said, if they want to go find that dog, there's a dog to be found. Try to have one of each of the pillars there. So the exploration, the combat, the role-playing. So looking at it, once again, start of the day of life adventure. They walk around town. Okay, they hear about a missing dog. Okay, next thing they do, they got to go get supplies. What would you need for a missing dog? Well, let's go find some dog treats and maybe a leash and maybe go talk to the owner and get the dog's favorite pet or toy, something like that. From there, we did a little, could do a little bit of role playing, um, and then off to actually tracking down. So we have some survival checks, maybe some investigation and perception, and then leading on to combat. Maybe goblins took the dog. Looking in combat, one things I will say is always try to use average damage. I shouldn't say always. When I role play with kids, I always try to do average damage. So that's what half your whatever the damage die is plus one. So if it's a 6, that'd be a 4 plus whatever the stat is. Just because a lot of games can be kind of deadly. So if you're rolling and you accidentally do max damage, that might not be so great for the kids. Depending on their age, you might even knock that down. If they're a little bit older, I would say you could be a little more realistic with it. But if they're younger, I would say even going minimum damage, just so that the kids have fun, is fine. And speaking of that, kind of loop back into character creation, I will say anytime I do anything with children, I always give them maximum health. It allows for that little bit of forgiveness in their gameplay. They don't try to meta as much as some of the adults I know, so it allows for them to make up for some of the wacky decisions that they make there. So giving them max hit points while reducing the amount of damage the enemies do really helps the kids have fun and make it not be as aggressive against them, and I have fun as well. It also speeds up the game not rolling all the dice. For longer sessions, I would say take breaks far more frequently, probably every 30 to 40 minutes. I know that seems like quite a bit. However, like I said, these are kids. They don't have, not saying that they all have ADHD nowadays, but 30. I know I see adults, like as soon as it's not their turn, they're looking at their phone and doing nothing. So a kid is going to have that same mentality, I think. So doing 30 to 40 minutes, take a break, take like a 5-minute break, that's good. The one thing I will say, when you take that break, talk about the session. Like, oh, I really like it when you did that. That's really cool. Or I'm really excited what you guys are doing. What do you think you're going to find in this next area? Or what are you hoping to find? So you can kind of probe them a little bit and find out where they're hoping the session goes during those breaks. But like I said, keeping the talking about the session, while I know it's not a break from the game so much as like it's a walking around and get a drink of water and that kind of break. It's having their imagination wheel still spinning really helps, I find. Last, when you wrap up the game, no matter whether you had a good time as a DM, a bad time as a DM, who knows, maybe this did not go nearly as well as you thought it did. You tell those kids, you know what, guys, I had a lot of fun. Let's go ahead and do this again sometime. So the main thing, let them know that because of what they did, you had fun as well. So kids had fun, you had fun, even if you didn't. I will say I've never had a bad incident DMing for my nephews and nieces. So I haven't had to, lie to them. But I can imagine there might be some scenario where somebody just doesn't quite have fun. So hopefully that will help you out. I know a lot of these are applicable to adults as well, but I was just trying to think about what all do I do and what all really helped me when I started DMing for my nieces and nephews there. So take care, guys, and I will talk with you next week. Bye.